Hello, everybody. We are really excited to have you here for this super awesome webinar about our food loss and waste grant opportunity. My name is Lisa Johnson, and I am the National SARE Food Loss and Waste Grant Program Manager. So if you want to reach out for any additional assistance, you'll be talking to me. I'm your touch point. What I wanted to say today is that we have gotten a great response from this webinar, and so we are really excited and encouraged by the participation, and we will be sharing the great appetite for this opportunity with our leadership higher up. I am going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to get into a deep dive of this grant opportunity. And at the end, we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. Feel free to use the question and answer feature in Zoom and go ahead and type your question into the box. And if we don't cover it, we will certainly get to it at the end. If you feel to jot down questions, and we can capture all those at the end. Again, my name's Lisa Johnson. I'm the program manager for this grant opportunity. Excited to see you all here. Now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this title page. I'm going to start out a little bit unconventionally because we've got such a large audience today and more coming in and in. And what I will say in the very beginning is, and I'll repeat this later, is that, let's see, this funding opportunity is available to US-based projects only. So as I have mentioned to a few of y'all, I wish we could offer global opportunities to reduce food loss and waste, but this one in particular is funded by USDA, and so projects are limited to the US and our beautiful territories. If that's not you, I don't want to waste your time, so feel free to hop off. Sorry, and let's stay in touch. A little bit further on this, who is eligible. This is for projects focused on food loss and waste. We're going to dig deep into this in a little bit, but if you are a tribal organization, a non-governmental organization, community organization, gleaning and food recovery organizations, public food program service providers, and all types of academic institutions, including 1862, 1890, and 1994 land-grant universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and other colleges and universities, you are welcome. We are excited to see you. We are looking forward to working with small and large organizations of all types. However, if you are industry, if you are a company that exists to make money, I would encourage you to find one of these organizations to partner with. These organizations are the ones that are going to be the lead on this grant opportunity. We are especially excited to see proposals from organizations that address food insecurity in rural, tribal, and underserved communities. So we encourage all of you to get comfortable. Let's hear all about this opportunity. First of all, I know you have a question about SARE. What is SARE? SARE is a grant-making and education program all about sustainable agriculture, authorized by the 1988 Farm Bill and supported with funding from the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture. The reason SARE exists is to advance agricultural innovation that promotes profitability, stewardship of the land, air and water, and quality of life for our farmers, ranchers, and our communities. Most of the grant programs within SARE include research and education grants, professional development grants, and producer grants. So if that is your interest, please keep an eye on SARE in the future to see what opportunities are available for you. If you want to find out more about SARE, there is an incredible publication of the past 30 years of our history. SARE has been focused on all of today's buzzwords for that period of time, building soil health, the ecology and economics of grazing, water challenges, social components of sustainable agriculture, managing crop pests in an integrated way, pollinators, wildlife, and biodiversity on farms, profiting with vegetable and fruit production, and sustainable communities through local foods. I know you're hearing a lot about these topics today and in recent times, and I want to share with you that SARE has been at work on these things for a very long time. So it's a great resource, and there are tons of educational materials available to you through SARE. There's a website on the bottom, sare.org. That's all you need to remember. This particular grant opportunity is very different from what SARE normally offers. It's a collaboration directly with the USDA, and it has a singular focus on food loss and waste only. So it's not about sustainable agricultural production unless it includes food loss and waste. The grant itself is managed nationally, but it incorporates the regional hierarchy and structure of SARE, including needs that are important regionally, and we'll have a regional review process. Instead of being focused just at the farm level, this grant opportunity is focused on the entire food supply chain in the US from farm to fork. I was thinking to put farm to fork to landfill, but that's what we want to avoid with this grant. So farm to fork. Food loss and waste is everywhere. Many of the people on this webinar already know that. The definitions, however, of food loss and waste are not agreed upon globally. So your definition is probably just as great as the USDA, EPA, and FDA definition. There are many, take your pick. We want to see, how you express what you're working on, whether it's surplus or excess or wasted food. Feel free. It's a learning experience for us too. Typically, a lot of people who study food loss and food waste divide it by where the loss or waste happens in the supply chain. So very often you will see food loss referred to as food that leaves the human food supply, either on the farm, in storage, or in distribution. And you might hear that food waste typically exits the human food supply chain at the grocery level, restaurant level, and in homes. So this includes institutions like hospitals, prisons, schools, universities, all of that. Again, your definition is just as great as ours, so feel free to not dwell on the exact definition. The goal of the program is to create pathways that strengthen food rescue and get surplus food to people, specifically those experiencing food and nutrition insecurity. We want to reduce food loss and waste, such as by gleaning surplus produce on the farm or finding new outlets for uneaten food to bolster supply chain resiliency or improve human and animal nutrition. The purpose of this program is to implement outreach, training, and technical assistance efforts to build capacity in other organizations for food loss and waste initiatives. We're going to get a little further into this later. Here are some of the nuts and bolts. The proper title of this grant opportunity is the SARE, CFP, Food Loss and Waste Training and Technical Assistance Grants Program. The call for proposals can be found at the link on the slide. Dara Munifa, maybe you could put the link in the chat to make sure people have that call for proposals handy. Thank you. The due date is June 28th at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So this is pretty important when you're submitting grants to pay attention to. The application itself is submitted through the SARE grants management system. It does not go through grants.gov. So you don't need to have a SAM ID or anything like that. Um, Selected proposals are going to be announced in August, and I don't have the exact date as of yet, but August 2024. And the project start date is going to be September 1st, 2024. It's a long project period. So there's a 3-year project period, which is really meant to allow you to take this opportunity as far as you can. Again, just for those joining, who is eligible? Projects from all US states are eligible, and all of our beautiful territories. One of the questions that comes up sometimes is, because this is a national grant program, but it's administered through Southern SARE, sometimes people can be confused about whether or not projects across the country are eligible. Let me just assure you they are. SARE is divided into regions. One region has to host this opportunity, and it's the South, the Southern region. So if you're in any US state or territory, you can apply for this grant. And one more time, those organizations that are working in the public sector are the target for this opportunity. So if you're working in a tribal organization, non-governmental organization, community organization, food recovery or gleaning organization, public food program service providers, and all types of academic institutions are eligible. And we want to see these organizations in the lead for this grant. So if you are a company or something like that, you need to show that you are partnering with one of these great organizations. We would encourage applications from those organizations that are specifically targeting food insecurity in rural, tribal, and underserved communities. Okay. The very important requirements of this grant are twofold. Okay. You can see them here, and we're going to come back to this a little while later. The first goal is to reduce food loss and waste, or FLW, in a measurable way. You will be required to do some quantitative reporting. I don't want you to worry too much about that quite yet, but you need to be reducing food loss and waste with your project. The second is you need to be doing training or outreach or education on your work, thereby sharing what you do with others. This is that building capacity in other organizations piece. So we want to see the effects of this grant multiplied across the country. If you have a project going in New Jersey, somebody in Texas should be able to pick it up and start running with what you've shown. So, like I said, we'll come back to this. The types of projects are very important. When we talk about reducing food loss and waste, there's so many ways to do this. And we have been guided by the EPA's wasted food scale, which is a new iteration of their food waste reduction hierarchy. And so I'm going to show that in just a minute for you. But the ways in which we reduce food waste really need to be either preventing wasted food, in other words, reducing the volume of surplus that's generated, and requires really planning through producing, buying, and serving just what's needed. This is the holy grail of food waste reduction, is prevention. So, if for some reason we're unable to prevent wasted food, we really need to be donating or upcycling or feeding animals with that food. So donation of extra or surplus food to food banks, soup kitchens, shelters, anywhere that serves people, or diverting a waste stream to create a new product, which is the essence of upcycling. Alternately, diverting food surplus or scraps to animal food is a much better use than some. Now I'll show you the figure that illustrates this. This is from the EPA, came out in fall of last year. It's called the Wasted Food Scale. If you haven't seen this, you might want to start familiarizing yourself with this. If you have seen it, I'm repeating it myself, but the most preferred outcomes for food are on the left, and the least preferred are on the right in the pink color. So the last thing we want to be doing with food is sending it down the drain, putting it in our landfill, or incinerating it. This is really high on the scale of environmental impact. So you can see, following that pink box all the way through the light green boxes to the darker green boxes, that's where we really want to be. We want to prevent wasted food, we want to donate or upcycle it, and we want to feed animals. I'll touch on this leave unharvested too, because I think it's really interesting. A lot of times farms leave food unharvested in the field, and that's actually what I've done most of my research on. According to the EPA, leaving food unharvested has less environmental impact than composting, anaerobic digestion, or applying to the land or landfilling. So it's not that terrible of an environmental impact. But for this project, we want to focus on, again, preventing wasted food, donation, upcycling, and feeding animals. How much funding is available? This is a great point. We have $8 million to share with projects nationally. What we aim to do is fund projects in each SARE region to the tune of about $2 million. We're expecting that to mean 2 to 4 projects per SARE region, with an expected grant size of $500,000 to $1 million. Projects with a smaller budget are certainly welcome, and we will be interested to take a look at those. One thing that's always exciting to see is that there is no match requirement. I should put on this slide that it is a reimbursement type grant, which can be a hurdle for people, but I do want to say that up front. Here is a map of the 4 SARE regions in the US. You can see there's Western SARE, North Central SARE, Northeast SARE, and Southern SARE. Most of your projects are probably going to have a local or regional focus, which is great for us, easy for us. We understand that some projects are going to have a more national focus, and that's okay. Our review process can account for that. Just want to point out on this map, Daramonifa is in one of our beautiful US territories in the southern region. Hi. The SARE host organization for this grant opportunity is at the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. And your National SARE Food Loss and Waste Program Manager, me, Raleigh, North Carolina. So though we're in the South, this grant is available nationally. Okay, let's get back to the 2 big requirements. What is required? Some amount of data collection and reporting is going to be required. This ensures that your project is helping to meet the national goal of reducing food loss and waste. If you're not familiar with it, the USDA, the EPA, and the FDA have joined into a cooperation to reduce food loss and waste by 50% by the year 2030, which is a very ambitious goal. We can all help with that, at least in our own homes, but in a big way with these projects. One of the requirements for this grant is that you need to collect and report data on the total amount of food loss or waste that is prevented or diverted in pounds by city and zip code. We don't expect you to include the name of the person who wasted or lost food. It is a difficult topic, but we do want some granularity in at least city and zip code. The composition of the food that was prevented from waste or diverted. So is it meat, dairy, grains? Is it produce or other? And how does this relate to the EPA's wasted food scale? So we want you to be able to report on the destination. Was it donated? Was it upcycled? Did it feed animals? Or was the waste prevented totally? You see up there a note, program manager will provide support. If for some reason you have not measured food loss and waste before, that's okay. As long as you have a plan that includes measurement, we can figure that out. Those projects that are awarded, I will get to hold hands with those awardees and make sure everyone understands exactly how to measure food loss and waste in their given scenario. So if they're working in schools or in homes or on farms, we can talk through that measurement and make sure that that's happening well. So what are the types of work you're going to be doing to do this? Well, you might be, these are just some ideas, revising harvest, handling, storage, processing, or distribution to help reduce food loss and waste, determining baselines in an operation through measurement, creating strategies for reducing food loss and waste through more efficient production practices, whether it's on farm or not, exploring options for donation of edible food to or from retail, food service, community organizations, schools, households, and to animals. Just some ideas for you. The other big requirement is for you to be doing outreach or training or education. This really ensures that the projects we are supporting really multiply their impacts across the country. So you will be expected to share how you prevented food loss and waste. What were the successes and challenges for this? I will be able to provide support to awardees on how exactly to do this, but you do need to provide some kind of a plan in your proposal. So what does this look like? It could look like training, classes, workshops, videos, guides. It could look like regulatory assistance, educational resources of other types. It could look like new technologies or even defining best practices for food system operations. The idea here is to build capacity in other organizations to reduce food loss and waste. Other ways to think about this include making sure that the outreach is experiential, integrative, or provides reinforcement. So here are some examples of experiential outreach: demonstrations, tours, for example, on farm, field days, workshops, trainings, or case studies. You could do some outreach in an integrative way by providing a conference, a seminar, or a course curriculum. And it would be wonderful to see a lot of reinforcement for all of these. So fact sheets, bulletins, books, manuals, videos, online technologies, or guidebooks. Again, the idea is to take your project and use it to build capacity in other organizations. Just a quick note on partnerships and subawards. I know I encouraged partnerships by those that are working in companies, but we would love to see partnerships among organizations as well. So if, for example, there are 3 organizations in one city, can you create linkages? Can you build a pathway for food to get where it needs to go? So we would love to see partnerships across different types of organizations, and we're hoping to see that. Subawards are allowed. So this is when you ask another organization to do part of the project and you give them part of the grant funding. For this type of arrangement, you would include a plan of work budget and detailed budget narrative for this subaward. Let's talk about the budget a little bit. There's a long list of allowable costs, which are meant to support program development and not necessarily facility development. Hopefully that's clear. So here are some of the allowable costs. Personnel of all types. So labor of the lead organization, labor of a cooperating organization, labor of stakeholders involved in the project, fringe benefits. Then there's travel related to project activities. The travel related to project activities and or the outreach plan should be domestic, not international. And just as a note, the federal per diem rate is 67 cents per mile. Materials and supplies needed for the project, including software and technical equipment, costs of sampling, data analysis, or social science related research like focus groups, surveys, things like that are allowable. And just a note here, there is a very detailed food loss and waste budget checklist at the end of the call for proposals. So feel free to look through that as you design your project. There's a few more allowable costs. Renting equipment that's needed for the project, only during the project period. It's totally allowable. You can't purchase equipment though, must be rented. Expenses related to the outreach plan. So if you're giving a conference or a seminar and you have expenses related to that, great, those are allowable. Food and refreshment at these outreach events are allowable. Publication charges, if you're writing a journal article or a book, those might be allowable costs. Computer costs and other direct costs such as communications, honorariums, fee for services, and consultants are allowed. Indirect costs are also allowed. SARE has a cap at 10%. So you'll have to check with your institution to see how that works within your institution. Again, take a look at the food loss and waste budget checklist, which is at the end of the call for proposals. Now let's talk a little bit about the unallowable costs, just so you know when you're designing your project. This funding is not going to be supporting starting or expanding a farm or a new organization. So you need to be an established organization to tackle this project. The funding will not support general operating, so your day-to-day expenses of your operation. This is, the funding is for use for this specific project only. Capital expenses, if you're building a building or need a truck, this funding opportunity is not going to support that. Then there's purchase of equipment, which we touched on. Breakfasts, which, you know, if somebody has a question about that, we can talk about it. Testing of commercial products. Any costs for producing annual and final reports. Participant incentives. International travel. Promotional items like giveaways, pens, t-shirts, etc. Or tuition. Again, there's more detail on all of these things at the food loss and waste budget checklist, which is at the end of the call for proposals. Just so you know, help is available as you're developing your project. If you need to brainstorm what is and isn't allowable, or you need to put a size and shape around your project instead of just a collection of ideas, reach out to me. I am able to help you with that. My email is right here, flw@sare.org or sare.org. And again, my name's Lisa Johnson. Once the awards are announced and we have a group of awardees, there's going to be a lot of assistance. I am in the great position of being able to help these projects be successful. And we're going to do that together So I will be infrequent communication with the grantees. We will do workshops together. We will have peer-to-peer interaction, one-on-one training, and webinars, all to make sure that you are successful on your reduction of food loss and waste and your outreach on how you're doing it. I can give support on measuring food loss and waste again, and with outreach and training and curricula development. So we will be in close communications during the life of the project. Further, if you haven't received a grant of this size before, maybe you're a small organization or you've just gotten going, don't worry. We have technical assistance for you too through Third Sector New England, who is available to help with grantsmanship training, project evaluation, and leadership development. So we are hoping to really bolster the organizations that are awarded this opportunity and make sure they are becoming leaders in reducing food loss and waste. Let's talk a little about the application process. What you will do when you want to apply after you've read through the call for proposals carefully, but well in advance of the deadline of June 28th, you will go to this website. The short version is ssare.org/grants. It stands for southernsare.org. So I don't want to confuse you. This is a national opportunity, but it is hosted by Southern SARE. So you will go to this website, and the first thing you will see is apply for a grant. Yes, you've made it. So you will scroll down at that point and look for the grant opportunity you want to apply for, which looks like this. It's a little banner on the side. It says SARE, Food Loss and Waste, Training and Technical Assistance Grant. There's a little blurb about the grant, and at the bottom, it has the deadline, June 28th, 5 p.m. Eastern, and there's a button to learn more. So you would click on Learn More. It takes you to the call for proposals, again, which you hopefully are familiar with, and there is a link at the top of that page that says SARE Grant Management System. That's where you want to be. When you get there, you will be in the SARE grant management system. And the first thing you will do is create an account, and you will enter all of your profile details, your name, your address, your email, your organization's name, lots of those details that make sure we can stay in touch with you. Then after you create a profile, you will be going to this page, which says SARE Grant Management System Proposal Applicant Links. What you want to do is start a new proposal. Unless you have several, then you would manage them. When you do that, it takes you to a page that says Regions Accepting Applications. And again, I want to make sure we get this right. There is a little plus sign beside the word national. These are our national grant opportunities, so you want to expand that by clicking on the plus sign, and it will pop up and say 2024 Food Loss and Waste Training and Technical Assistance. Again, here's the link to the call for proposals, and then you want to click on this green button that says Begin a New Proposal. When you do that, it will take you to this overview page. At the top, there are buttons that say My Proposals, View Draft, Call for Proposals, which is there again, and there's a Submit button, which is kind of grayed out and stricken out at the moment because you haven't built up your proposal yet. So I have submitted grants through this portal, and it's pretty user-friendly and self-explanatory. It will show you in red what has not been submitted, and you will go to that, click on it, and edit. So for example, the status of this proposal is not submitted. There's a missing title, and there's a button here where you can edit that title. Throughout the grants management system, there will be a banner on the left-hand side that shows you all of the required elements of your proposal. So basic information, the body, the budget, the outreach, the valuation, and the signature page. Here you can see again that submit button is grayed out because all of these have little red stars beside them as they haven't been filled in yet. When you go to each of those sections, it will describe for you what the question is asking, and make sure you understand what you're supposed to be putting in that box. It will show you a word limit. And for example, the statement of the problem, you need to begin it as the purpose of this project is to, and then continue on. So it walks you through what you need to add into this box. If you want to work on this question, you just click on edit. Then you get a box. So you can fill in, you can copy and paste your answer right in here. And if you would like to, there's a button that says add media. So I've gotten questions about adding letters of support. If you want to add a figure, any kind of attachment, that's where you would do it. When you're done filling in this section, click on save. Oh, and at the top of this, you might see there's a little bar on each page that you're going to within the grants management system. You can always go to the next section, the previous section, your overview, and you can view a draft of your proposal, which will also show you what's missing. And you can get to the call for proposals very easily. Once you're done filling in all your sections, you would hit this green button, submit the proposal, and you will receive an email confirmation. Just a quick note on the review process. We are developing this process right now. There will be a 3-step review based on a committee approach. Your proposal will be reviewed within the region that it's submitted to by a committee that is based in that region. And then they will score your grant proposals and submit the highest scoring ones to the Regional Administrative Council, who will then recommend funding certain proposals to the National Food Loss and Waste team. So it's going to be a large group effort to make sure we have only the best projects funded. We expect some awesome outcomes from this grant program. We are hoping to increase community self-reliance to provide for their own food needs, promote comprehensive responses to food access, farm and nutrition issues, identify strategies for reducing food loss and waste by identifying value-added production opportunities, meet specific state, local, or neighborhood food and agriculture needs for planning for long-term solutions, and create innovative activities that mutually benefit agricultural stakeholders and consumers, everybody. We are hoping to find out how project activities impact low-income and historically underserved audiences. We are excited to see data on food surpluses that were previously wasted that have now been recovered or diverted. We're excited to find out about food recovery methods that can be used to reduce food loss and waste, understand and work with our regional priorities on food loss and waste initiatives and solutions, and identify food loss and waste hotspots and provide solutions. I have here a picture of the SARE team, which I photoshopped myself into on the left-hand side right next to Dara Manifa. And it is now time for all of those questions to be answered. So hopefully you have put your questions into the Q&A feature of Zoom or into the chat, and we're going to address as many as we can right now. The webinar is being recorded and it will be shared. So look for that on, where would that be, Dara Manifa?
That's going to be on our Southern SARE YouTube channel. I am cracking up at you putting yourself there next to us like that. That
I
is
had
so
to do
cute.
it.
Hilarious. For those in the chat, as Lisa just mentioned, the all of the questions in the chat, sorry, not in the chat, in the Q&A are what Lisa's going to be able to go through. If your question was put in the chat and you didn't have a chance to get it in the Q&A, please do us a favor and throw it. If that's because you're not sure how to get to Q&A, please be sure to put it right back in the chat now so that it can come back up. But I think most of you were able to get it over there. So only those of you that did not get it put in the chat, if you're unsure how to do that, please go right ahead and put it right back in the chat right now so that it can be to the forefront. But she's going to start in the chat itself. I want to clear one question first that I think it was asked multiple times, and it is related to whether or not local governments can apply. So we can kind of get that simplified question out of the way because it was asked multiple times. And then you could start at the top.
Yeah, I'll start with that one. That's a great question. The grant opportunity is not targeted toward governments of any type. So we can't stop you from applying. However, our priority is going to be non-governmental organizations.
Okay, and then the other questions are coming in, but the questions that are currently in the chat, and I'll just start from the top. And if for some reason we misunderstand your question, please feel free to throw it in a different way, or if we absolutely can't get through just by reading, we'll go ahead and help you unmute your mic because sometimes that might be the best thing. But we're trying to watch time, so this is the fastest way to do this for now. So, what a proposal focused on developing culturally relevant training material for Spanish-speaking community in Arkansas to focus on value-added production of surplus/second agricultural products, food safety for Spanish speakers, farmers, and food entrepreneurs fit in this call. It would collaborate with community liaisons across the state. Did that come through clearly?
Yes, as much as I understand about the project, absolutely. Developing materials to educate a wide variety of communities on food loss and waste reduction using any strategy like value added production would be a great use of this funding. I do want to say that, we with limited time need to keep questions general. So if you have a specific question about your project, email me. My email is flw@sare.org. Thanks, dear Manifa. She just put it into the chat.
Yep. And so the next question, because we're going to try to get you all out of here within the hour that we allotted to. We may not make exactly that, but we'll do the best we can. Is the District of Columbia considered a state for the purpose of this solicitation?
I'll go ahead and say sure. Probably would need to check with my leadership on the exact answer to that question, but as we are trying to encompass the entire country, including our territories, I would go ahead and say yes.
Thanks for that. And here's another from a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 and 501a exempt farmers organization. Are we restricted from this funding opportunity?
I don't know what a 501A is, so maybe we should talk later.
Okay, so email address is down there, FLW for food loss waste at SARE.org, and 501A exempt farmers organization is what you're trying to clarify, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next one is rural Alaska faces very unique food waste challenges. Many times, the wasted food is not suitable for human consumption, and not everyone is interested in keeping farm animals.
Mhm.
Composting is probably the best way of dealing with a lot of the wasted food. Would a composting focused project not be considered an eligible project because it doesn't focus on those top three food waste diversion tactics?
Actually, I'm getting this question a lot. Composting and anaerobic digestion are fantastic ways to recycle food waste, particularly post consumer food waste. However, they're not the focus of this opportunity. We are hoping to fund projects that are creating streams, building linkages to get edible food to people or inedible food to animals, including edible food into an upcycled product. So while that work is so important, and I really wish there were more composting grants, it might not be suited for this opportunity. But then again, I can't, I wouldn't stop you from applying, but it won't be the priority.
Okay, thank you. Understood. Uh, and here's a follow-up to that. Someone is curious on why not? Why isn't composting a preferred method here? And do you have any way of explaining why it would have a more environmental impact than desired?
No, I don't have a way to explain that. I would check with the EPA on that. What I can say is that composting and anaerobic digestion are just not the highest and best uses of our food. As I mentioned, they're extremely important, great ways to recycle and reuse food that is inedible. We are focused on higher up on the uh, wasted food scale.
And you showed an image of that earlier, right? The wasted food scale in terms of what that means, what wastes food the least.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're interested in learning more about the wasted food scale, check on the EPA's website, look for wasted food scale. It's readily available. And they might have a lot more information specifically related to composting, anaerobic digestion. Someone asked about biodigestion. I would say look there.
Okay, he said thank you for the answers. All right, moving on. How frequently would we submit financial reports for reimbursement during the grant period?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so this is a reimbursement grant. Someone else asked about this, I noticed. What that means is you need to be prepared to absorb costs of supplies, personnel, fringe, travel, whatever it is, up front and submit paperwork to be reimbursed from the SARE program. So it's not necessarily on a schedule, but this is as monies are spent down, you will submit your reimbursement. I hope that makes sense.
And
Uh,
for those
some,
that asked the question about reimbursement time, obviously we cannot give you an exact amount of time, but the feedback from many of the SARE award recipients is that it is one of the fastest they've ever experienced. So it's just a matter of
oh,
signing
nice.
up through, in this case, if it's being managed through Southern SARE, the University of Georgia's system, and you'll be able to just go through and they're able to help you with that.
Yeah, as projects are awarded, I will get with the grantees individually and walk you through all of those processes. I am the grant manager and manage of the subject matter of this grant. However, contracts and reimbursements will be handled through the University of Georgia. I will hold your hand through all of that. But it is a process.
Okay, let's continue to go down because I think we have more questions coming in than we do have time left. So for those that are listening right now, we are less than 10 minutes away from the time when we want to wrap up, but definitely with this number of questions, we will be going over. Feel free to leave if you have other meetings and other responsibilities. And the recording will be on our YouTube channel. So you will be able to have access to that. If you can stay, great. But we just wanted to let you know you're not going to miss anything because we are going to be recording and sharing this. All right, going down the line, would a project that also includes a compost implementation for residents and a business be eligible if it was included along with prevention components?
Maybe. I mean, I can't say, it depends on what the other prevention and diversion components are. So, I would, if you want to email about this or have a Zoom meeting separately, we can do that. Um, yeah, I mean, if it's part of a package, I don't see how there could be any problem with that. But again, the composting piece is not going to be our main focus.
Yep, gotcha. All right, so who retains ownership of any educational materials, videos, etc., that they would develop as part of the training
Ooh.
program? Does that intellectual property remain with their organization or would it belong to SARE?
I don't know the answer to that. That is a great question. I will have to check with Sarah on that. I know that we would want to share the educational materials, but I don't know who would retain ownership of those materials. Great question.
Yeah, in general, for many of the SARE grants and projects, I do not recall there being an intellectual property challenge with the original person that did this. As you said, the final report and everything else, and if publications and other products are created, are shared by SARE, but even some of the publications that SARE produces are not the intellectual property per se of SARE. So it's not a situation where you're giving over all of your creative rights, but definitely more conversation and that can happen so that you can be absolutely clear of what is and what isn't.
Absolutely.
All right. Can you include all or a portion of a program manager's salary in the grant?
Sure. Yes. If, for example, you needed to hire someone specifically to do outreach, that would be just fine. And they, with the understanding that the project period is only 3 years. So if you want to see that role sustained, you need to have a plan for sustaining that past the project period. But yes, absolutely, you could hire a separate person to do a new thing that you haven't done yet.
Okay. And I'm seeing in the chat that I missed just a step back, a clarification on the question about the salaries.
Okay.
And the clarification or question is, for example, salaries, must they be paid through the university and then reimbursed by UGA?
Okay, so this question leads me to believe that maybe you, the person asking the question, are working in a university. The salary would need to be paid, yes, by the university, and then it would be reimbursed through SARE, who is hosted by the University of Georgia. I hope that clarifies things.
Okay. And then Candice also has shared in the chat, reports and project products are public once the project is completed and the information is posted to the SARE projects database. So that
Mhm.
further supports what we were stating in terms of the concern about the intellectual property rights.
Yeah, we definitely want to share what you've created, but the ownership question, I don't know about yet. Something I can ask about.
Right. Well, and we can get more into that. So let's keep going. Our project involves the development of a physical site that will address food loss waste. I understand that capital expenditures are not permitted, but is it possible that funding could support other pre-development costs, including staffing, research, food recovery pilot efforts, etc.?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. If you need to do research, maybe you're creating a marketing plan, you need to support that with data. You need to do outreach and education to reduce food loss and waste in your community. Yes, I think that would fit.
Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to request that further questions, please send them to the email address flw@sare.org. I put it in the chat one last time. And that way we'll be able to cover those without taking this into another half an hour. So we're going to keep going and try to get down these questions. But I do see that we only have a few minutes left. So I definitely want to thank all of you for coming, and we'll continue. Can you say more about costs incurred for producing grant reports being unallowable? Mm.
Hmm, that's a good question. If you were going to, for example, to hire someone just to produce the final report, that would be unallowable. It needs to be people who have been active in the project.
Okay, and then a clarification on that question regarding being able to provide food at a conference, but not breakfast. That's a
Oh,
question.
yes, the breakfast question.
Mhm.
This one is a hard question, but typically speaking, breakfasts are not included as a part of travel because A, people are often traveling from their home office or home base or home city in general. And when they reach a destination, breakfasts are often provided by hotels. So breakfasts are unfortunately not included in travel costs. However, if you wanted to give a conference and include a breakfast at the conference, that might be okay, but we just need to review that to make sure.
Okay, great. So continuing down, if we address as many aspects of food waste reduction as possible, can composting be included as the last resort strategy in collaboration with other strategies? Also, does there need to be a farmer angle?
Um, you're welcome to include composting in any outreach or any teaching material, of course. It's an excellent way to recycle, again, food loss and waste. Um, There does not need to be a farm angle, no. We are open and excited about projects across the food supply chain. So, if you work in homes, if you work on food loss and waste at home, for example, you probably wouldn't have a farm component, and that would be just fine. Maybe you work on food waste in prisons or food waste in warehouses or food loss in cold storage. You don't need to have a farm component. No.
Okay. And when measuring the poundage of food waste diverted, does the poundage have to be separated into the different food categories, example, meat, dairy, grains, and so on? And what if it's prepared or cooked food for catering that gets diverted to food donation organizations?
This is a great question. I would put that into the other category and describe it as meals. These are maybe they're fully prepared meals that are portioned out, frozen, and moved to a donation stream, something like that. You'll have the chance to describe it, but I would probably put that in the other category.
Excellent. Okay. Are First Nations eligible? Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Uh, is this SARE grant a recurring yearly opportunity?
Wow, that would be awesome. I don't know the answer to that question because everyone is waiting and watching to see how this program is going to go. Given the incredible excitement and energy behind the participation we've gotten, I hope so, but I can't tell what's going to happen in 3 years.
Right.
So we hope.
Currently, this is the program as it is right now, so we won't have any way of knowing that. Uh, all right. What is value added production opportunities? Okay, specific to this.
Okay, yeah. So let me give you an example. If you took surplus food, for example, produce, and you made it into salsa or jam, or you froze all the broccoli florets, those are different types of different ways to add value to a food product. If juiced something or canned something or chopped something, those are all ways to add value. Um, and very often ways to extend the shelf life. So uh, there's so many methods to do that, but those are just some examples.
Sure. Someone asked, do we have enough reviewers?
If you would like to be a reviewer, let me know.
Great. If we're a national organization, can we partner with organizations in more than one region?
Sure. Sure. We do expect that some proposals are going to have a national focus. If you there is a place in the application where you can describe your partnerships and your subawards. So please do that.
All right. Would projects that include sending food waste to farm-based anaerobic digestion for beneficial use and composting be excluded from consideration?
Composting and anaerobic digestion are not the primary focus for this opportunity. We are hoping to prevent food loss and waste or divert edible food for human use and upcycling or divert it to animals. So I don't want to say you would be excluded, but it's not our priority.
Okay, we just got a handful more. Any guess to how many proposals we anticipate to receive?
No clue.
Not at all. Can these funds be used as quote unquote cash match for other federal grant programs?
That is a great question. Daramanifa, do you know?
I have no idea. Candace, if
Candace, do
you're
you
on,
know?
and let's see what's next in the meantime. We'll come back to that question if there's a response. Another budget question. I assume there would be a process during the grant period for budget modifications as things shift over the 3-year period.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and I can help walk you through that.
All right. How can we connect with other people applying for the grant from my state or region? Will you help us connecting? Oh,
That is a great question. We've gotten such a great response, for example, to this webinar. I would love to see all of y'all connected to each other. We do plan to connect all of the grantees or awardees together to ensure we're all learning from each other. I'm not sure if there's a way to capture and connect everyone's email from this
yes.
webinar. There is.
Yes, I have it.
So then you might want to, we might then need to know that you want your email address shared.
Correct. So we'll have to think through that to figure out how to do that
Yeah.
in terms of keeping contact information confidential for those who are not interested. So we would have to kind of think on that a little bit before we can respond to that. But it's a great idea. So I think if we can, we'll consider it. Candace did respond. These grants can be used as a stepping stone project into larger or other USDA funding opportunities.
Okay.
All right. Does the funding need to be spread out evenly over 3 years? Or, for example, could it be a larger spend on a 1 to 2 year project and the third year be more about educational outreach about the 1 to 2 year project?
It doesn't have to be evenly spread out. You will submit for reimbursement as you spend it.
Okay. Operations already going on in partnership with food banks can be supported by this grant to keep going longer? Question mark.
Yes, absolutely. The project funding is not intended to be used to expand what you're already doing or pay for operating costs. However, that said, if you're already reducing food loss and waste, but you're not measuring what you're doing and providing outreach about it, this project would be a great way to highlight the work that you are doing.
Nice. All right. We host a food justice summit every year. Food waste is one part of it. Would we be able to request a portion of funding for the entire event? Other question, would we need to assign a percentage in our proposal?
Interesting question. I think that's something that maybe we should talk about separately. It's kind of specific, but I think that there's a way it could be done.
Okay. And let's see. I think that is it for what's in the Q&A. And if we missed anything else, because it seemed like what people did was they posted it in the chat, then they put it over into the Q&A. So if I am incorrect with that, I saw many of them that did that. Please let me know. We'll just take a couple more minutes and that's it, because we are done with the ones in the Q&A now. So I'm closing the Q&A. But it looks like many of them were responded. Are we able to submit for dual projects? There's one that didn't get over. Example, getting consumable to the community / unconsumable to animals.
Yes. I would say that we would like to see one proposal from, every organization. You wouldn't want to put it onto two proposals, but you describe your project, and it sounds like it would be a great fit. So,
Okay, another question asked, and just to clarify this again, uh, could you please let us know if the project has to be representative of the region?
that's an interesting question. We do want to take into account the urgent needs of our different regions. The needs to reduce food loss and waste are different, for example, in the Northeast region versus the Western region. We have a lot more cities, for example, in the Northeast region, a lot more rural areas in the Western region. So the needs in those regions are going to be a little bit different. If you are working on food loss and waste, if you're an active organization working in one of these regions, you probably already know what is most important to your region. You don't have to have a focus that's broader than your local area, but you're welcome to incorporate a regional focus, really think big, or if you're doing a national project, that's fine too. I hope I answered that question.
So far, so good. Seems so. And I think we are about done. If I am incorrect, please let me know. But I'm scrolling up the chat and lots of good stuff in here, including people sharing their email addresses for others that might be in their region looking. So if there are those of you that that is the case, feel free to do that. That's one way, because you are disclosing it yourself and saying what region or state or location you're in. So you can go right ahead and do that. But I think that's it. I think we're great.
Okay,
All
I
right.
really just want to say thank you so much for attending, hanging with us, getting all the details of this grant opportunity. Hopefully, it's right for you. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if it's not right for you, feel free to share it with somebody that you know. And thank you for attending and being excited about this. We are too.